That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, personally, I think that these are some of the best videos if we are talking about actually becoming better Dynasty fantasy football players. And I get a ton of requests for videos like this pretty much every week over there on Locals, but on YouTube, they never do well. They never get that many views. I don't know if people don't play in tight end premium leagues. I don't know if people don't play in Superflex formats. But if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please let me know in the comment section. Also, drop a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And most of this information has actually been covered in our Dynasty research book, over 100 pages of quality, in-depth information on how to adjust for your Dynasty format, regardless if that's a 10-team league, 12-team league, 14-team league, regardless of if it's Superflex, tight end premium, if you start 8 players, if you start 12 players, if it's points per carry, if it's Devy, if it's best ball, it's all in there. And on top of that, we talk about historical hit rates for rookie running backs. On top of that, we talk about age cliffs, every single position. On top of that, we talk about rebuilding rosters, contending rosters. It's over 100 pages. Make sure you go get a copy of the Dynasty research book on flockfantasy.com, or you can get it by going and making a deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. And when you make that deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you will actually get that Dynasty research book. And on top of that, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. And you get a month-long trial of our premium Locals content, including our Dynasty rankings, our rookie rankings, so much stuff over there. So please make sure you go use promo code FLOCK. You'll be able to get into a lot of drafts with us on the live stream as well over there on Underdog Fantasy. That should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into some Superflex. Let's dive into some tight end premium strategy. And let's start it off with Superflex. This is something that I have covered previously before, but one thing that I don't want to say annoys me, but it's surprising when people reach out to me and they don't automatically understand that they need to make this adjustment, is adjusting your Superflex strategy with how many teams are going to be in your league. Now, the reason that quarterback value is dramatically different in Superflex leagues that are 10 teams versus 14 teams is the quarterback position is unique compared to any other spot in fantasy football. If you're looking at quarterback, we know the best week you're going to find, the absolute cream of the crop. Everybody's available. There are no bye weeks, no significant injuries. There are 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Best case scenario. We know that a lot of times with bye weeks, with significant injuries to players, you may only be able to realistically start about 25 quarterbacks across your entire league. Whereas at running back, at receiver, that line never really goes away. There's never a hard cap saying, okay, no, you can only find really 60 wide receivers in fantasy that you can play. No, if you need to, you can go throw Laquan Treadwell into your starting lineup and you can get 4, 5, 6, 7 points out of him dependent on the week. And there's a big difference between getting 8 points from a receiver and getting a total of 0 from an empty quarterback spot. So understanding this unique factor in the fact that you can't just draw starting quarterbacks out of a pile, say, hey, you're going in there. It creates a limited supply, and we need to view that supply of 32 starting quarterbacks with the lens of the overall NFL landscape. Because if we go through and map out how you can distribute these 32 starting quarterbacks based on how many teams are in your league, let's pull up this little chart here from the book. Not one of the best charts in the book. I apologize for that, but it's simplistic. I think it really illustrates exactly what we are talking about here. And let's put ourselves in a 10-team league for this scenario. Let's go say we just joined a 10-team league startup. It's going to be Superflex. I decided to go Josh Allen with my first round selection. Now, in the second round, should I go Stafford? Should I go Trevor Lawrence? Should I go Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts? No, because we need to understand how quarterback is going to be changed later on in the draft. And if we look at the fact that there are 10 total teams, every single person is going to be able to walk away with 3 starting quarterbacks. Now, of course, there are going to be some teams out there that go, you know what? I want to hoard the quarterback position. I want to go out there. I want to draft 4 guys. I want to draft 5 guys. Yeah, you're going to be in a league with a couple of those people. It's always happening. What's funny about this is that person that wants to draft 4 quarterbacks in a 10-team league, you tell them, my man, be my guest. Go out there. You do that. Let's see how it works out for you. Because even if there are 3 teams that decide to draft 4 starting quarterbacks in your startup draft, and they hoard them, they go, you know what? I'm not trading these guys for anything less than a 2023 first-round pick. There's just not the demand for that trade to happen. Because even if you are the one guy that gets screwed and you're like, okay, well, 3 teams loaded up on 4 starting quarterbacks, 6 teams in the league, they got their 3 starters. I'm the guy left over with only 2 starting quarterbacks. Crap, I only have 2. A, 2's enough. You can get by with 2. And B, once you get to the season and these owners realize, oh crap, I'm just bleeding points by having Ryan Tannehill on my bench. If I can ship off Ryan Tannehill and get anything, there's only going to be one person that's in the market for buying a quarterback, and that is you. And on top of this, if we look at these rookie drafts, guys like Matt Corral, players like Kenny Pickett, they're going to be falling significantly compared to 12-team, compared to 14-team leagues. Say you need a quarterback and you're drafting at the 108. Instead of trading that pick and going and getting a quarterback right away, you can sit there because the people in front of you, a lot of them are going to have 4 quarterbacks on their roster. A lot of them, pretty much all of them, will have at least 3. And it's going to be really hard to go out there and take an extra QB if they already have that many. Now, going over to a 12-team league, this is a perfect balance. With the 12-team league, of course, there's always going to be that one person going out there getting 4 starting quarterbacks, and that will actually alter the demand here. Because if you have one person rostering 4 starting quarterbacks, and we know everybody's trying to get 3. That's your goal every time you go into a Superflex league. I need 3 starting quarterbacks. Well, 6 teams are going to be able to do that. And of course, this is just a hypothetical scenario, but I've played in a crap ton of Superflex leagues since 2016. I promise you, usually you can map out the actual supply demand of these leagues. There are going to be about 5 or so rosters that only have 2 quarterbacks. Now, of course, a couple of those teams are going to be rebuilding teams that really don't care about their team needs, that shouldn't really care about putting points into their starting lineup. But you begin to see the fact that there will be a demand for these quarterbacks. In rookie drafts, players like Kenny Pickett, players like Matt Corral will begin to slide up draft rooms just a little bit. And that team that has 4 quarterbacks, they're not going to be sitting there going, okay, well, I just have nobody to trade with. I can't give away one of these guys. No, if they want to trade away one of those quarterbacks, they want to trade away a Carson Wentz, they can possibly go trade away Wentz and a future 2nd round pick and get back 2023 first during the season if one of those teams with only 2 quarterbacks suffers an injury and is a contending roster. I mean, you can definitely see that trade market play out, but it is very balanced. Now, where it begins to not be balanced is in a 14-team league format. This is where you begin to need to take a quarterback in the 1st round, 2nd round, and 3rd round if they are there for you. Because if you look at this, we're going to assume that no teams in a 14-team league were successful in acquiring 4 total starting quarterbacks. We're going to assume that none of them were able to. Of course, everybody wants 3. Everybody does. And let's assume only 6 of them are able to get 3. That's not even half the league. Well, still, at that point, 6 other teams have the space to roster 2 quarterbacks. And there will be 2 teams left over with only 1 quarterback in a Superflex format. And unless you are star-studded everywhere else on your team, good luck competing with only 1 quarterback. So if we go and put ourselves in the shoes of someone with only 1 or 2 quarterbacks here, for you to go and acquire one, it is going to cost a significant amount. This is the part of the demand ratio where all of a sudden Matt Corral is going ahead of Treylon Burks. This is the spot where Kenny Pickett's going ahead of Garrett Wilson, as they should in this format, because it's going to be damn near impossible to trade for a quarterback. It will still be, I don't want to say easy to get someone like Jameis Winston, but yeah, you'll be able to get someone like Jameis Winston. Whereas in a 16-team league, oh my gosh, the demand will be absolutely ridiculous, where we are going to assume that 5 teams are able to get 3 quarterbacks. That's less than a third of the league. Honestly, probably will be a little bit more than that, but we're going to be conservative. 5 teams get 3 quarterbacks. 6 teams only have 2. You are not sitting pretty. You are not happy with your roster if you only have 2 starting quarterbacks in a 16-team league. And still, 5 teams are left over with only 1 starting QB. this is where you begin to get Malik Willis at the 101. This is where you begin to get Matt Corral possibly at the 102. In a 16-team format, it is impossible to trade for a quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, you are going to be picking at the very top of your rookie drafts, and it's just going to really create that echo chamber where quarterback value is going to be absurd. If you're playing in a 16-team startup, I think the first 10 picks off the board should be QB, and I would almost essentially lock in quarterback with my first 2 picks. Now, let's scroll down a little bit beyond this, and let's try to figure out how we should be adjusting quarterback value with our starting lineup requirements as well. And here, it really is going to depend on the amount of total starters that you have in your league. Because what I've wanted to look at, we did this with a couple different things, roster sizes and different scoring types. But I wanted to look at the percentage of the starting lineup points coming by position and trying to figure out exactly the difference in value where you're starting a lineup that doesn't really have many players in it versus a lineup that you have a bunch of extra flexes. And here, if we're looking at this, if you're starting a team with only 8 total spots and it's a Superflex league, that means that 25% of your starting lineup spots are coming from the quarterback position. That means about 30% of your points per game are coming from quarterback, dramatically altering your win rate. Where if you have someone like Josh Allen, if you have someone like Kyler Murray, if you have a Lamar Jackson and a Dak Prescott, it is going to be so hard for your opponents to be able to catch up on you. Because even if they are beating you at wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8, how many of those players can they actually get into their starting lineup? 3? And if you're boat racing them at quarterback, who the hell cares if they have a more well-rounded roster? Who cares if they have more depth? Because they just simply don't have it as a possibility to be able to outscore those 2 elite quarterbacks that you have. Compared to in a league where you start 12 players, all of a sudden that production for a quarterback is going to dramatically go down, where a team that has loaded up on those depth wide receivers, they're all of a sudden going to be able to chip away and overcome that lead that you built upon with your overall quarterback position. So understanding this as well, that if you're playing in a league that has extra flex spots, if you're playing in a league that has an extra starting lineup spot for the receiver position, honestly, I'm going to be willing to go out there and devalue quarterback a little bit so I can build a well-rounded roster overall. Whereas if I play in a league that only has 8 total starters, I'm probably going to be the guy trading up in the startup draft to try to get 2 of those quarterbacks, to try to get Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, because even if I miss out on a receiver in the middle of the draft, someone like DJ Moore, so I could have moved up, hell, I mean, a lot of times that's not even really going to make an impact on our win rate. Now, let's go over to tight end premium real quick. And of course, this is just scratching the surface of what we cover in the book. But with tight end premium, there are 2 main thought process that people have when they look at the format. A, they go, okay, well, the elite level tight ends are going to be having an even larger gap between them and the rest of the field. So I should be raising the value with the elite level tight ends. And B, I should be raising value with all tight ends because we're going to be able to flex a tight end in a league where they get 1.5 points per reception. And this is an opinion that I had for a very long time as well. This is something that I thought back in 2015 when I joined my first tight end premium league. And based on this research, honestly, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be true. Now, I decided to look at a league that, say, in theory has a total of, I believe, 9 starters. Yes, 9 starters. So this would be a little bit different if you were starting 10 versus 11 players. And I wanted to go with the extreme example. I wanted to say, okay, well, what happens if we go out there and we roster the number 1 tight end overall? We're able to get Mark Andrews from last year. Exactly how much of a difference is it going to be making with the composition of our starting lineup production on a week-to-week basis? And here, if you look at the difference between a points per reception and a 1.5 PPR mark for your tight end position, you're getting a bump up in about 2.5 points per game, which if you're looking at the percentage of your starting lineup accounted for, that is negligible. That is like, 1.5% difference. Maybe 2 to 3%. It is literally nothing that we can really even be measuring and saying, okay, well, yeah, we're going to get an extra win for this. Now, that is not to say we shouldn't be drafting those elite level tight ends, because we'll get to the flex idea in just a little bit. I will say, if you look at the gap between a 2-point per reception league at the tight end position versus 1 point per reception, there it is a big difference. There all of a sudden, yes, I mean, going and drafting Kyle Pitts in the first, Mark Andrews in the second, that's going to give you a significant advantage over your league mates where, yeah, if you can have those 2 elite level players, you'll just be able to, almost going back to what we were saying at quarterback, take a little small hit at receiver, take a small hit at running back if we can just widen the gap between us and the rest of the league at the tight end position. But with 1.5 points per reception, that doesn't really happen. Now, that's not to say you should not be drafting tight ends highly in a league that gives you that extra 0.5 point per reception for the position. Now, I will get to that in just a second, why I think you should be probably targeting those elite level tight ends. But let me go and at first debunk the myth saying, oh, you can flex more tight ends in a tight end premium format. So what I've decided to do here is we decided to go through and look at what makes a quality flex level player. And what we decided to do for this is just look historically over the past 3 years of players that you were able to actually put in your flex spots if you are a contending roster in Dynasty. 12 points per game is going to make you a flexible player. So what we decided to do is we decided to look over the past 5 seasons since 2017, and we decided to go, how many tight ends were actually flexible, worthy of being put in that flex spot in a regular league versus a tight end premium league. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, Mason, I'm going to draft 2 tight end ones. Don't tell me that, oh, beyond tight end 12, starting at tight end 13, this is how many flexible players there were. I understand that some people want to draft 2 tight end ones. So instead of dequalifying everybody that finished as a tight end 1, assuming that they would all be in the regular starting lineup spot as a tight end rather than a flex, I moved that threshold for a player to be considered flexible from tight end 13 to tight end 7. Okay, I hope that makes sense, because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I plan on drafting the tight end 4 and the tight end 9, and I'm going to jam one of them into the flex spot. I'm not going to wait to get a second tight end before I put them in. Hopefully that makes sense. So even if you draft 2 tight end ones, this is going to make sense for you. Now, with those thresholds, you've seen that on average, there were 4 tight ends that were eligible to be put into your flex spot. And those guys were essentially tight end ones their respective seasons. There were 4 players in tight end premium formats at the tight end position on a year-to-year basis that you could go and put into your flex. And if you look at just a regular PPR league, I mean, really, there was only half a tight end on average that you wanted to be going out and putting in there. I think the exact number was 0.75. So the difference is essentially you had an extra 3 tight ends across every league in a tight end premium format that you could all of a sudden go and put into a flex spot on a contending roster. I know a lot of people may be doing it as is, but I'm sure if y'all follow our redraft channel during the season, and every single time I get a question asking us, oh, should I play wide receiver X or tight end X in our flex spot? Our number 1 rule is you do not flex a tight end. You do not flex a tight end. You do not flex a tight end. And based on this research, kind of shows that that rule does not change in a tight end premium format. That flexing the tight end at any time, unless you, of course, have George Kittle and Travis Kelce, it's a bad idea overall, even if you draft 2 tight end once. Now, going beyond this, of course, I can't just be a robot here and show these numbers and not understand actual dynasty trade value. I know when you get into your startup drafts, when you're in your leagues, yes, it is going to be a different story with where these players are drafted. Tight ends will be drafted higher in a tight end premium format than they would be elsewhere. That's why I'm sure you've seen me in some of my startups this offseason take Mark Andrews at the end of the 2nd round. And I think the main takeaway that we have from this is tight ends should not be dramatically changed with their valuation overall, but they will. So we need to figure out where we are going to bite the bullet. Should we reach on the mid tight end 1 in the middle rounds and take them ahead of a wide receiver 2? Or should we just take the elite level tight end and be able to punt the rest of the position and wait until the very end of the draft and bring in someone like Harrison Bryant as our tight end 2? In my opinion, I think we should probably just be punting the position, waiting until we get to the Irv Smith Jr. range, waiting until we get to the Harrison Bryant range, to be able to bring in those back end options. So instead of reaching on Dallas Goedert, instead of reaching on a player that I used to reach on in my tight end premium formats that looks horrible with hindsight, would be someone like Evan Ingram in the middle rounds. Of course, he's no longer going there. That was a massive mistake I made. I think that you either want to pay up for the elite guy or punt the position and do not plan on being able to put one of these guys in your flex spots. Now, thank you. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. Please go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, let me know what you thought I got wrong. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and go get our Dynasty Research book. Go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy to hop into some drafts with us. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day.